Howdy howdy to all you lovely people. I hope we've had enough time to digest the Survivor 50 of it all, because that was the time, and I couldn't go anywhere without finding an obscene amount of hate for the cast and what Survivor 50 is going to bring. But if I'm being honest, I think Survivor 50 is the least of my worries. I'm way more curious to know what Survivor will be like after Survivor 50. And that's what I plan on doing this video. I want to talk through the future of Survivor past 50 and delve into what I think the 50s and beyond of Survivor could look like. It's no secret Survivor 50 is a massive season of the show. It's a celebration as coined by Jeff Probst himself. And I'm curious to see if the show continues to run on the same formula it did in the new era, or if we move on into another era of the show, past 50. I also want to cover the future of returning players and returning players' seasons on Survivor, and just talk about Jeff Probst himself and his future and his philosophy on the show, because I think it's extremely important to focus on that aspect as well. There's just a lot to think about, and I want to get ahead of the game and give my perspective on it all as we sit here today in 2025, or at least as much as I reasonably can. And if I want to put a blanket statement over the future of Survivor before diving into specifics, I think I'd have to describe my feelings as cautiously optimistic. If I had asked any random online Survivor fan the same question, I think their answer may be very negative or down on the future of Survivor, because the new era has just not lived up to the potential that Survivor showed us for 40 seasons before. But I don't think people realize how great of a game Survivor is. No matter how much I disagree with the way production views the show and wants the show to be done, there is a floor to how good Survivor is, and that floor is so much higher than pretty much every single reality show out there. Even bad Survivor is better than most other reality shows on a good day. I truly believe that. I'm not saying it's perfect. Oh, hell no, it's not perfect. And I don't know if it ever can be with the direction it's going in. But it's going to be viewed, and it's going to be something I will always be excited to watch every spring and fall for as long as it's airing. So I'm not worried about the show falling off a cliff or becoming something we can't recognize as Survivor, because as much as people complain, it's still Survivor, and that identity is going to stay the entire time. The one thing that I think is genuinely great and the best it's ever been for Survivor as a show in the modern day is its casting. I think we rarely get any genuine duds on a season, and the reason some seasons are not looked upon favorably are not usually because of the cast, where other seasons the cast is the issue. That's another reason why I think Survivor will always be watchable and enjoyable at the bare minimum. We may not feel like the casting is as great as it is because we haven't seen these people enough to consider them legends or top tier Survivor players and characters, and that's what 50 will hopefully be for, where some of these new era players can really shine and show out. No matter how much we can be mad at the 50 cast, this is going to happen. Some of these new era players are going to build a legacy, and that is only good for the game to get new legends or new favorites in the fold. Now, if only they would do more returning player seasons so we can get this again and again and again, but that's something I will talk about later on in the video. But Survivor is going to be good. And on a grand scheme of things, the show will last to 60. I have like 1,000% confidence in that. That doesn't mean I think everything is perfect, because I definitely don't. And that's what I will get into right now. The first of these topics I want to talk about is the immediate future of Survivor. I am talking that first cycle of the show after 50 with seasons 51 and season 52. And not to be dramatic, but these two seasons will determine the direction of Survivor in the 50s. Just like 41 and 42 did for the 40s. Now, as we did move along in the 40s, a lot was changed to make the show not as terrible as it was early on. But still, the foundation was there, created in 41 and 42, and that foundation has stayed throughout the entirety of the new era with the dangerous fun of it all. So I'm really curious to see what Jeff wants the 50s to be founded upon, because theoretically, it could go a ton of directions. From what I've seen in some online discourse, there are definitely talks about Survivor moving into yet another era after 50. Survivor 50 is going to be this celebration of the show, and then Survivor is going to try something new and try to expand the game even more in the 50s. But if I'm being honest, I disagree with that completely, and the casting of season 50 helps me solidify my justification in that. I don't think Survivor 50 is practically a celebration of the show, nor do I think production views it as such. The casting of this season does not feel like one last hoorah for all these people where we say goodbye to them as they play one last time. Maybe that'll be the case for like 3 to 4 of them, but aside from that, I could see the rest of this cast all coming back and playing again. And that includes people who have played a ton like Suri and Ozzy and Aubrey and all that. This is not a true celebration. Otherwise, I think the show would have had a very different cast than it does currently. Survivor Winners at War was an actual celebration of the show. That is a season of all seasons that could have been treated as a season finale to the show. 90% of the winners at Warcast are people that will never play Survivor again because that was the closing chapter in their Survivor story. 50 is not like that one bit. This is a big season for the show, but it's not this Clash of the Titans season, and kind of feels like a stepping stone to really kick the new era into overdrive. I swear, people would not be as upset with the cast of Survivor 50 if the words celebration of the show was never used. You censor those words from your mind, and I think this picture is much clearer to see the path production wants to go in. At the same time, isn't it like so obvious that Jeff and production love the new era? They are extremely proud of what they have created for the show, and there is a 0% chance they are going to throw all of that away when there's no reason to. I think they found their sweet spot. As fans, we may disagree with that, but we don't control the show, and our voices won't do anything to change that. In a Variety article last year, Jeff talked about Survivor 51 and said he's already thinking about 51 and how he wants to add another layer. And even with saying that, he also said he doesn't want to do some dramatic change for 51, just another layer on top of it. Which sounds about right for me, and makes sense on just continuing what they were doing, but just adding something more, I guess. So I'd say expect a lot of the same for 51 and 52 with something new being added to the game. But I still think it's going to quantify as a new era. We are not escaping this era of the show that easily. Moving past the immediate future of the show, the topic most people probably care about is the topic of returning player seasons and what will become of them post 50. There's a lot here, and I do have plenty of opinions, so strap in, please. First, and by far most important factor in the future of returning player seasons is dependent on the success of Survivor 50. If you're super pissed about your faves not making the 50 cast and you want to see them again, you better wish upon a lucky star Survivor 50 is a great season that both fans and production enjoyed. Because Jeff doesn't need to do returning player seasons. I don't think Jeff enjoys doing them that much, and that's kind of why we haven't had one for 10 seasons, and the only reason season 50 is a returning player season is because it's season 50. To get any other returning player seasons before Survivor 60 comes along, Jeff needs to get that itch to bring people back. And the only opportunities he has to get that itch back is through the casting process of 50, the filming of 50, and the airing of 50. If all three of these align and were great experiences for Jeff, that itch will be there. And if Jeff wants another returning player season, we're going to have another returning player season, with something like Survivor 54 or 55 being the next one in line. This could be the season that brings us back some of our faves that were robbed the last time by either CBS or just by productions cutting them themselves. I'm specifically talking about like Greg Buis, Sean Rector, Earl Cole, Malcolm, Carolyn, Jesse. The list can go on and on for people that I feel like didn't make it on this last season that still have a chance in the future. I want to make another video at some point when we get more information on who was called and talk through who could be in the running for the next returning player season of Survivor and see if we can figure out a decent sized casting pool. Anywho, I got a little bit off track there, but it's fairly simple. Good Survivor 50, great chance we get a returning player season sooner than later. More factors do play into this, however. And one of them was something I was paying attention to throughout the entire rumor mill. The next returning player season happening is very dependent on how much power Jeff had in this casting process as well. Considering, like I said, Jeff doesn't really care for returning player seasons that much. If you strip any power from him on who actually makes it onto the cast, he's definitely not in any rush to do another season. And throughout this casting process, it was definitely a rocky road. I felt that Jeff was pretty energetic and excited at the beginning, and when we were hearing of the names that were called, it kind of felt like this was Jeff's cast. This is who Jeff wanted on season 50, and he was pretty much getting his way with all of it, making it more of a second chances season where you have a lot of people from the new era and then some old legends that haven't had a chance to come back yet. That felt like something Jeff would love to have. But then, somewhere along in the casting process, a switch flipped with everything. All of a sudden, it was mentioned that CBS was getting their hands on this cast. They wanted some big names on the season to bring in viewers, and it felt like they were taking over the entire production process, which is what led me to believe we got some of the old school names we got, like Ozzy, Colby, Coach, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, apparently. And then what was quoted as the New Era Massacre hit, where we saw people like Jesse and Carolyn and many other New Era players getting cut, and we realized this is going to become a mess of a cast with very few New Era reps, actually. And that is something I think Jeff would have hated, because Jeff loves the New Era and he loves the people within the New Era. But then you cut to the finalized cast, and I think if you ignore the couple of legends picks, quote unquote, that I talked about earlier with an Ozzy, Colby, Coach, this is kind of everyone Jeff would want on season 50. The cast is half New Era. He got 5 people in the 30s that were post game changers that I know he really wanted on the season, and the cast just legit feels like what Jeff was hoping for at the beginning of it all. And that leads me to the final conclusion that I think Jeff got his way here. I really do think he got the names that he's super happy with, while also missing out on a lot of names he wanted on the season at the same time. I think the combination of those two allows Jeff to feel powerful again, and that power will help him get the itch to make more returning player seasons. Not an overwhelming amount, because I don't think Survivor is a show where they think they have to rely on returnees anymore, but I think we're getting at least one other returning player season before Survivor 60, which will obviously be another returning player season. I was scared for a second, but I do think Jeff looks upon this casting process positively and is really proud of this cast. Obviously, some people hate him because of the cast, and I think we should look at the bigger picture here. And that bigger picture is that our faves will have another chance to return as long as 50 goes well, so we all better hope that 50 goes well. And the final topic I want to discuss is something I don't really want to think about, but going through Jeff Probst himself. Jeff is 63 years old, and that is insane. And while on the show he is still Jeff, that's not going to last forever, and he will eventually retire as host of the show. But don't get too excited now, y'all, because you're stupid if you think he's going to be hands off of the show forever by the time he retires from hosting. He will continue to be a producer even when he retires, so we're only losing the best part about Jeff and keeping the worst part. So no, I don't want him retiring anytime soon, because if Jeff puts his whole heart and soul into producing, I'm kind of scared for what Survivor looks like then. But it's important to talk about when we think this eventual retirement will happen and who will be the person to replace Jeff and what that means for Survivor. And there's a wide range of different times Jeff could theoretically retire, but I do kind of lean for it to be sooner rather than later. He's actually recently talked about who would be his successor when he retires, which means he's thinking about it already. However, I do think when the time comes, we will see it coming. I think barring any medical problem that arises for Jeff, expect a landmark season of Survivor to be Jeff's last. So expect like Survivor 60, Survivor 70s, or like Survivor 75 to be 3 points that I could see as most likely to be Jeff's last season, again, barring anything else happening. Jeff will want to go out with a bang, so I expect this season, regardless of whatever it is, to be a returning player season as well. Maybe this is just how my brain works, but it makes so much more sense to go out with people who have been able to experience Jeff throughout all eras of the show, instead of going out surrounded by a new cast that could just suck and not actually care. But whenever this does happen, it will be a massive event, because this is what some people consider the beating heart of Survivor. And while I think the show will go on after Jeff, it will feel very strange, and I hope it's a long time before we get to that point, because I just don't even want to think about it. But again, this is going to be something that happens, because I do think Jeff will retire before Survivor is canceled or stops airing. Survivor continues to be the biggest show out there every time it's airing, and that has not wavered 25 years into its existence. Survivor is sticking around. And so we will eventually need another host of Survivor, because Father Time trumps everyone. And while the fun answer to give as Jeff's successor would be a former player, because it feels like a passing down of the torch moment, I think that's kind of fan fiction. In reality, the next host is probably going to be somebody who isn't that popular, or somebody we just have no idea exists right now. When Jeff did talk about who would be his next successor as host on his podcast, he mentioned somebody who's already in production with him. So he's looking internally for somebody who has been with the crew for many years already and just can slide in as seamlessly as you can in this situation. So no, don't expect to see interviews for being the next host of Survivor coming out, or Jeff hitting up Boston Rob to see if he wants to be host. The true answer for me is that we just won't know anything about this until that day eventually comes, so don't get your hopes up on anything. I think this is kind of going to be a whimper when it eventually does happen. All things considered, I genuinely am positive on the direction Survivor is going, and I think we will see a lot of success in the 50s of the show and beyond. We are never going to get that old school or even middle school type of Survivor again, but that's a super unrealistic goal to set to begin with, and we kind of have to accept this version of Survivor as the version we will have for the rest of its existence. But the one thing, and the one positive I will never doubt about Survivor that holds it above so many other reality shows, is that these people care. You can always tell this show means everything to Jeff and the producers. They want to do Survivor right and make each season as impactful and the best it possibly can be. We may disagree with a ton of the choices that they make, but at the very least they are making these choices because they want the show to be great, and in their vision, this is great to them. And I kinda have to respect that. You can't say that about Big Brother US or Big Brother Canada when that was a thing. You can't say that about pretty much any other show outside of maybe The Traitors. And at the end of the day, I will continue to be optimistic about Survivor as long as the show shows that they still care. And I know they do. But that's all I got today. This will be the last Survivor US video I put out for quite a while, unless something crazy happens. But that doesn't mean you should go, because we got other things coming. Traitors, Big Brother, Total Drama, Australia vs. the World are all going to be videos splatooned over my channel this summer, and I really do hope you all stay to enjoy them as much as I enjoy making those videos, including some massive projects and videos throughout. But until then, that'll do it for me. If you made it to the end of this video, I love you. Platonically, of course. And I will undoubtedly see ya when I see ya. Bye-bye.